Good Monday morning to everyone out there. Welcome into the Sportsmemo podcast, the NFL opening line report with Teddy Covers. And without further ado, Teddy, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey. Oh, sorry. I tried to cut you off there. Hey, welcome. Great to see you, Drew. Or great to talk to you, I should say. I can't actually see you, being that we're talking via podcast style.
It is a podcast. You had a pretty good NFL weekend this past weekend, up double digits for the clients, 75% big tickets last 2 months, Teddy, 73% NFL year-to-date. How's it feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great start to the NFL season. The college is okay, too. We're profitable in college, but the NFL has really been great, 10-1 with the sides. And, yesterday was a sweat and a half, man. But when all said and done, when the smoke cleared, the big ticket cashed in, we made a nice profit, and it's been now 5 straight weeks of NFL profits, and as you mentioned, up double digits on the season. And let's see if we can keep it rolling, man. You know how the NFL is. The minute you think you got it right, the legal snap your head back. So we'll just keep grinding, keep working, and see if we can make October as good as September was for the clients. Certainly a great month when it comes to football results.
Yeah, we'll keep it going, Teddy. And for today's podcast, this is the NFL opening line report. We'll go from Indy, New England, down to next week's Monday night game, Washington, New Orleans, talk about the opening lines and where they're going, where your market entry should be. But, Teddy, it is Monday, October 1st. Welcome to October. We have KC, Denver tonight. Do you have any quick thoughts with KC laying 3.5 on the road, 54.5 the total?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in action on this ball game. You can get the guaranteed play right now up at sportsmemo.com. But certainly some quick thoughts. How would I say this? I'm in no rush to step in front of the Chiefs. When a team and the team I keep coming up with is the 99 Rams, because the Chiefs are a paradigm shift team. And when the 99 Rams, and of course the hype gets there, but first 2 months of the season, you bet the 99 Rams, you bet them every week, and you made a whole bunch of money. And while the markets are reacting quicker this year, remember where Kansas City's coming from. They're coming from a place of, this is going to be a 500 team this year, to, are they the best team in the NFL? Are they one of the best teams in the NFL? Markets haven't been real sure what to do with the Chiefs. There's definite reluctance based on Kansas City's defensive stats to award this team at or near the top of the league point spread status. And it's certainly worth noting the Broncos and Vance Joseph going to become the first team in the NFL to get a second look at Mahomes as the starting QB. Mahomes started against Paxton Lynch last December, and he guided the Chiefs to victory in that ball game. But at least Denver's getting a second look, the first team to get a second look at a guy who's obviously lit up the league.
And Teddy's got a 10-star NFL Monday night football top total, again hitting 73% NFL year to date. Teddy, getting into the opening line report, we got Thursday night's game, 301, 302. Indy at New England, looks like 52.5 the total, 53 at some shops. Looks like we're also seeing some opinion on this side here. Chris showing 9.5. Also seeing anywhere from 10.5 even at Cantor in Las Vegas. What do you got for opening lines, Indy, New England, Teddy?
Okay, so I've got a good buddy who's his son is on the same Little League team as my son, and they've been on the same team now for a couple of years, and he's a real good guy. He's really developing into a nice friend. But when you get to 50, you don't meet a lot of new friends. But the point is this: he listens to the podcast every Monday. He's like, "What are you guys talking about with those opening lines and your lines?" So I want to make this very clear: with every game that we talk about, I'm going to give what's called the look-ahead line. The look-ahead line is a bettable line on this game from last week. What that means is that you can see how much the markets have shifted off of just one game for each of the two teams. In some circumstances, the markets will shift off of one game, off of one of the two teams, and the other team was on bye or the other team plays Monday night. But the goal of the look-ahead line is to give an idea, what was this line last week and what is it right now? The second number I give for every game is my powering number for every team. These are not situational. I don't factor in the situation or anything else. All I'm doing is Team A's power rating, Team B's power rating, and the home field edge. And I do have different home field edges for different teams. But all it is A minus B, factor in C, and there's the number. And that just gives you an idea of where my numbers say that the market should be for any given game. So that's what the look-ahead line is, and my powering number. And of course, Drew, you give out the opening number and the early move as you introduce the game. So for this game, Colts-Patriots look-ahead line was 8.5. My number is Patriots 10. We're seeing Patriots 10 as a prevailing number. It feels like that's where it's going to settle. But as you mentioned, bookmaker just got popped with a big bet on Indy down to 9.5. Of course, the Colts on the wrong end of an ill-fated Frank Reich decision to go for it on fourth down from their own territory late in overtime. Teams off an overtime loss heading on the highway have not been good bets. And the question is, was what we saw from New England on Sunday the real Patriots or not? A market adjustment of 1.5 points off of Indy's grueling affair and New England's dominating performance against Miami. But again, numbers 10, my power rating's 10. I'm not seeing a whole lot of expected initial line movement on this one.
Teddy, moving on to Sunday slate, we got 4-5-1, 4-5-2, Baltimore at Cleveland. Looks like we're seeing 2.5 at Pinnacle, 3 Chris, 2.5 5 dimes. So kind of bouncing around here at the key number 2.5 or 3, and 47 to 48 is the total, Teddy.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to land on 3. Feels like it's going to get there. The Superbook is at 2.5 minus 120. Penny's at 2.5 minus 18. BOL's at 2.5 minus 22. 5 dimes at 2.5 minus a quarter. They're just hanging on to 2.5 until somebody else bets them, and then they'll move to 3 on Baltimore. Look ahead line here was Ravens minus 1. My powering number is Ravens minus 3. And while the Browns lost that game to Oakland yesterday, don't be fooled by that final score. They won that game. The refs, literally, and as a guy with a Raiders ticket in my pocket, I can't complain. But I don't know that I've ever seen a call get overturned, like when Cleveland got the first down to take a knee, and then all of a sudden it goes up to the booth, and all of a sudden the booth determines his knee was down a quarter inch before the first down marker. It was a pretty bizarre call. There was another pretty bizarre call against the Browns where, Carr strip sack, fumbled, return for a touchdown. Oop, we blew the play dead. In fact, it's Raiders ball still. It was those were egregious calls against Cleveland, and for a team that already feels like, hey man, the whole world's against us, the whole league's against us. Those type of calls are hard to swallow. The bigger issue for the Browns in this ball game, and I gotta get the number. They have 39 drives in that. It was the most drives for an NFL game that I've ever seen in my life. Literally, there may be one some point that had more drives in this ball game. Just let me get that 19 drives each for these teams. There could be a fatigue factor for Cleveland in this one, and I think the market's reacting to that. Of course, the Ravens looking so good last night. That being said, if you like the Ravens, find the 2.5 now. It does look like this line is going to 3. Total at 47. We're seeing some upward pressure, 47.5. That one surprises me a little bit. I'm continuing to look at the Browns as an under team, even after that wild affair in Oakland yesterday.
Teddy, moving down the card, we got 4-5-3, 4-5-4, Jacksonville at the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, with Kansas City involved in tonight's Monday night football game. Not some shops not with a number, but I am seeing 3 at some of the shops in Las Vegas, also at 5 dimes. Not seeing a total in the marketplace, Teddy, but any quick thoughts on Jacksonville, KC?
Sure. Look ahead line here was Chiefs minus 3.5. My powering number going into Monday Night Football is Chiefs minus 2. And I'm not really off market on Jacksonville. And I'm not that far off the market on Kansas City either, so I'm a little bit surprised at where the markets are in this game. 3/3.5. The threes all come with juice on Kansas City right now. There are a good handful of 3.5s out there. And again, given that the look-ahead line was 3.5, if the Chiefs win and cover tonight, it comes 3.5 or higher. If the Chiefs lose and or fail to cover and or don't score 8 touchdowns like they're doing every week, the line probably comes 3.
Teddy, quick question. Is this Patrick Mahomes' best defense he's faced?
Jacksonville, yeah, for sure. I mean, tonight's game against Denver is probably the best defense he faced, and then Jacksonville will be by far the best defense he's faced so far this season.
All right, that's an interesting handicap. We got 4-5-5, 4-5-6, Tennessee at Buffalo. Looks like the Titans laying 3 or 3.5 on the road, 38.5 the total.
Yeah, the threes are pretty. I mean, there's a couple of them out there. We can put. On the other hand, I mean, it opened some books at 4, some books at 3, and it's kind of moved in between the two. It looks like 3.5 is going to be the number for this game. My look-ahead line here was Tennessee -3. My powering number is Tennessee -3.5. And maybe it's time to take the Titans' defense seriously. I kind of poo-pooed some of their early season performances on the defensive side of the football. They were great yesterday again. Defensively, 1 week after being great against the Jags. And look what happens. Look what Bortles in the 2 games between the Titans game, where he's throwing for 375 yards back-to-back, and then he can't move the ball against Tennessee. So maybe it is time to give this Titans defense a little bit of credit. Really impressive win. What they could beat on, converted 3 different 4th downs on the game-winning drive. Vrabel takes the field goal kicker off, gives the ball to Mariota, who, by the way, looked healthy yesterday for the first time since week 1. And of course, the Bills are the Bills. Defensively, let's give Buffalo some credit. They gave Green Bay a lot of trouble in that ball game for being put in a number of bad spots after Josh Allen struggled a fair bit. But, rookie QB making his home debut. And there's things to like about Josh Allen. There's not much to like, however, about his receiving core. I don't see this line moving a whole lot right now. There has been a little bit of under money. If you like the under, I bet it's sooner rather than later.
Teddy, we got New York Giants at the Carolina Panthers. Looks like the Panthers, another key number here, 7, 6.5 at some places. Good one to shop around right now, 44 the total.
Yeah, and on every Monday show, when we do the opening line report, I like the we should have some theme music for it. Emergency betting alert,
All right.
And I like to take at least one game and say this line's not going to be there tomorrow. Bet it now. Carolina will be 7 across the board tomorrow. If you like the Panthers, find a 6.5 and lay it, because I do not expect this line to hold with Carolina coming off their bye week. Look-ahead line was only 6. My powering number is 7.5. The markets are clearly moving to 7 this morning. Total sitting in the 44.5 range. We have seen a little bit of over money, and I can see. The Giants are kind of an over team, even though they ended up staying under the closing number yesterday. They played great red zone defense against New Orleans, but it's not a defense that it's not an elite defense. At times it's going to be a good defense. They will get some stops in the red zone, but the one thing the Giants have, however, is playmakers. The offense, OBJ and Shepard and Barkley, that's 3 guys that with the ball in their hand, they can put the biscuit in the basket. Of course, can Eli get the ball in their hands is another question entirely. Panthers should be healthier coming back off the bye. Haven't read a lot about Carolina this last week, but I can tell you this, the market's showing us pretty clearly this game is going to 7. So, again, your emergency betting alert is right here. If you like the Panthers, find a -6.5 right now.
All right, I like it. Emergency betting alert. I will get on to trying to get some music there for that. We're seeing 6.5 at Heritage and Jazz right now, and if you're in Vegas, CG Technology also has 6.5. We got 4, 5.
Yeah, wins at 6.5. Bet online's at 6.5. There's a good handful of 6.5s out there still, as we record early on Monday morning.
Okay, Bet Online has 6.5 as well.
Yes, sir.
All right, most people out there likely have a Bet Online account, so check that out. 459, 460 Denver, New York Jets. Obviously, with the Monday night game tonight and Denver involved, only seeing a couple shops with numbers, but 2 or 1.5 in this one, Teddy.
Yeah, look-ahead line here was the Jets -2.5. My powering number has the Jets -1. The market's right now in that, as you mentioned, 1, 1.5, 2 range, that dead range of where one team's favored but not yet approaching a field goal. And obviously, if the Broncos look good tonight, that game goes pick 'em. Maybe Denver's a favorite. If the Broncos look bad tonight, I don't think that it's going to go up a lot. The Jets max out here at 2.5. It doesn't get to 3, even if Denver loses tonight, 66-0. So from a spot standpoint, the Jets have kind of been up against it. They had, the Monday Night Football win, and then short week, brutal defense. probably the most likely spot for Sam Darnold's success since that opener against New York.
Teddy, just a market question here in the NFL. I know you know it a lot better than me, but you bring up the dead zone, 1.5, 2 here. So what type of bet would it take for a sports book sitting at 1.5 to go to 2 at this point in the week in the NFL?
A limit bet, it wouldn't take much.
Okay.
I mean, you're not talking about like a plethora of, it doesn't take 20 bets to get down. But, of course, it's not about the size of the bet necessarily. It's about who is making the bet. And when you see big early week bets, the any individual bookmaker is going to react to that fairly significantly. When his better clients come in and bet big on one side or the other, you're going to see a significant move right off the bat. It doesn't sit around.
All right, good stuff, Teddy. We got 461-462 Atlanta Falcons at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looks like the Steelers laying 3 in Heinz Field, 57.5 the total.
Yeah, which team are you excited about taking here? Look ahead line was 3. My powering number's only 1. Total at 57. Sheesh, and 57.5, and that's a Falcons total. Steelers are an over team right now. I don't know if you noticed the last 2 weeks, Pittsburgh second half of the game. They had a goose egg against Tampa, and they had a goose egg against Baltimore. And from a body language perspective last night, Pittsburgh was pretty rough in the second half of that ball game. It has the feel, and again, a national TV game where Pittsburgh gets slapped around at home, and they don't look energized. They don't look cohesive. And considering all we know about that locker room, there's been a lot that we know. What don't we know? I'm sure there's been a lot that we don't know as well. I'm very surprised that Pittsburgh held as a 3-point favorite, and I have to think at some point we're going to see some Atlanta money, but there's no indication of that now, and several of the books are at 3 minus. Look at, Westgate's at 3 minus 20, Greek's at 3 minus 20, 5 Dimes is 3 minus 15. Yet my powering number is 1. And Atlanta, I mean, defensively, they're having a real rough time right now, as any team would when they lose a pair of Pro Bowlers out of their secondary. The question is, the Steelers' offense that dynamic? I don't see Pittsburgh taking a bunch of money here. And again, the markets aren't showing me that. I just doesn't feel that way. We've already seen over money. We may well see more over money. 56.5 the open, 57. The Steelers are considered to be a dead nuts over team, even though they didn't cash over last night. And the Falcons are probably a strong and over team this side of, that you're going to find when it comes to their defense riddled with injuries. And, when you talk about Ridley and Jones catching, deep balls every week, that's a scary looking Falcons offense right now. And you can understand why this total's been bet up already.
Teddy, heading to the NFC North here, we got Green Bay at Detroit. Looks like the Packers laying 1 or 1.5 on the road, 50.5 the total.
Look ahead line here was Pick'em. My powering number has Green Bay minus 1.5. The current number, Green Bay minus 1.5. And you can anticipate there will be some Packers money this week. I don't think the public's going to get involved with Detroit, even though they cashed yesterday. Green Bay off the shutout win, there will be market support, and if you like the Packers, I'd probably get involved. Hey, you can find a pick minus 25 or minus 1s at a couple spots. This line ain't coming down; it can only go up.
Teddy, going on down here to the Miami Dolphins at the Cincinnati Bengals. Looks like the Bengals laying 5.5 or 6, 50.5 the total. I don't know what to make of Miami and where this line's going to go, Teddy. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't think it goes anywhere. The look ahead line here was 4. My powering number is 5.5, and I think the move from 4 to 6 is warranted here, or 5.5, 6, based on the results of what we saw, because there were some questions. is Miami any good? The Dolphins had been on the right side of some fortuitous decisions, and they had 3 relatively easy foes in the first 3 weeks of the season. Yesterday at New England, we found out that there are still some growing pains for Miami, to put it mildly. It was a pretty ugly showing. Brock Osweiler got off the bench, and anytime Osweiler gets off the bench, it's not a good game for the Dolphins. For Cincinnati, they should get Burfict back this week. He makes a big difference on that defense that's been lit up each of the last 2 weeks. But, Cincy off as wild a game as it gets, and Miami, hungry off an embarrassing loss, spot-wise, it does speak to the Dolphins. But where's this name going? I mean, again, 5.5, 6 right now. It looks like 6 is likely to be the prevailing number. I don't think it gets to 7. I don't think it gets to 4. It's going to hang out in this dead range all week long.
We got 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 8. Moving on to the 1 o'clock Pacific kickoffs. Oakland, LA Chargers. Looks like Chargers laying 6 or 5.5. 53.5 the total, Teddy.
I like that you've moved to the West Coast time, my friend. All game times should be said in Vegas time, because that's where the games actually take place. Well, they might take place at the stadiums, but the real action is here in Sin City. Oakland and the Chargers. Look headline was 6.5. My powering number is 7.5. And remember, the Raiders just played a 19-possession game on defense. And each of the last 2 games, I've watched Oakland. I mean, that defense parts like the Red Sea. Easy drives for their opponents. 1-play drives, 3-play drives. Someone misses a tackle. Someone falls down. It's a Raiders defense that is lacking playmakers. The Chargers rallied from 2 TDs behind. They took San Francisco pretty lightly, and they certainly haven't been great in this favorites role. And, every home game that the Chargers play is a road game. There will be as many or more. There'll be more Raiders fans in there than will be Chargers fans, flat out. But where's the money coming? The money's coming towards Oakland right now, fairly heavily. I talked about my powering number is 7.5. Well, a lot of books opened. Bookmaker opened 7.5. Penny opened 7. And now we're looking at 5.5 and 6. We're definitely seeing over money for this ballgame as well. The Chargers have the makings of an over team right now. That defense has been something of a disappointment. I don't think that we see more Raiders money than this. I think at 5.5, that's going to cap out for Oakland. That's as low as it's going to get. And if anything, we'll see Chargers money bringing it back the other way.
We got 469, 470 Arizona at San Francisco 49ers. Looks like 41 the total, Teddy, with the 49ers laying 4.5 at home.
So here's an interesting one. The look-at line here was 2.5. My powering number is 6.5. And the markets are right between, 4, 4.5. Total sitting in that 41 range. We have seen a little bit of Arizona money. And look, the Cardinals defense has been pretty good, and Josh Rose was rock solid yesterday. Of course, Phil Dawson missed what would have been the game-winning field goal, and the defense collapsed on the final drive. And that's, Arizona football circa 2018. A winless squad with a rookie QB going on the road. But when you look at San Fran, and I'm surprised this number's been bet down. I guess the Niners' defense wasn't any good and had some struggles. But, I made, I think, a 5 or 5.5 point adjustment from Garoppolo to Beathard. And that was too much. And that was very clear yesterday. Beathard, he's not Garoppolo, but the offense doesn't stop with him on the field. He was making good throws. He was making good decisions. He can make things happen with his legs. And I can understand why, at 4, to me, San Fran looks a little bit cheap. Especially, my powering number 6.5.
All right, fair enough. 471, 472, Minnesota at Philadelphia. Looks like the Eagles 3 with some juice at some sports books. 44.5 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, the 1-2-1 Vikings versus the 2-2 Eagles. This feels like a really important game, doesn't it? The loser here says, Philly be 2-3, Minnesota be 1-3-1. For the Vikings especially, the NFC East isn't loaded. The NFC North has, a couple of pretty good teams in it that Minnesota's got to worry about if they fall to 1-3-1. Look ahead line here was Eagles -3. My powering number is Eagles -5. I'm not seeing the markets agreeing with my powering number. I didn't downgrade Philly a whole lot yesterday. I thought that, again, with Wentz back, it's going to take a game or two. They've had those couple of games. Of course, they do face a pretty good defense here, but it's a pretty good defense with extra time to repair. Yes, and we like Mike Zimmer with extra time to repair. But, last good game from the Vikings that I saw came in 2017, and they yet continue to get a fair bit of respect from the markets with this number. Does it get to 3.5? I don't think so. Maybe. We're not seeing broad market support for Philly at this number, even though my powering says perhaps we should.
Teddy, we got the LA Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. Looks like Rams 7.5 at some shops, 50 the total.
Yeah, look ahead line here was Rams -7. My powering number is Rams -5.5, and I haven't been raising the Rams every week. You know, I've been real comfortable with my Rams number, and for all the success they had in September, you know, the market caught up with them last week. You know, and if you bet them early, you cash. If you bet them medium, you lost, and if you bet them kickoff, you pushed. And that's a game they dominated. So once you start to see that, you know, once you see Alabama stop covering when the game where they were leading 49-0 at halftime, all right, you know, markets are caught up with them. The markets have caught up with the LA Rams. That being said, what a devastating injury for Seattle. And I don't know what the deal was with Earl Thomas flipping off the Seahawks sideline, but, you know, he's been their playmaker on defense. And without him, this is not a dynamic offense anymore. They're, you know, Russell Wilson really doesn't have guys getting open downfield. The offensive line is bad, and they just lost their playmaker on D. So I'm not anticipating a ton of market respect for Seattle this week. We are seeing some heavy over money coming in right now as we're talking. The markets are hitting the Rams over the total, and, you know, 49.5 is getting bought up the 50s, and maybe it gets even higher than that if you like the total. Hopefully you didn't miss it, but I would get involved with that sooner rather than later. Only if you like the over. If you like the under, obviously, you wait between now and kickoff. The Thomas injury will definitely affect this total, as the market's not going to sleep on his impact on the former Legion of Boom defense.
Teddy, obviously knowing his stuff. And guys, make sure to check out sportsmemo.com for his NFL Monday Night Football top total, hitting 73% in the NFL year to date. And also check out his monthly or season packages. Going to be kind of a better deal, if you will, per play. Get you on the right side with Teddy Covers. Obviously knows his stuff. Teddy, we got Sunday night's action. Dallas at Houston. Looks like 45 the total, with Houston laying 3.5 at home.
Yeah, and you make a great point, dude. Don't ever buy a play. Really, don't buy a play. If you want to get involved with someone, get a weekend at least. Get a week. You know, obviously if you have the bankroll and you want to get involved, the monthly or seasonal package offers the best value. But don't ever buy a play. You know, you can get on board with a lot more than that for very, very reasonable prices, in my opinion. Obviously, it's your call. That being said, I think my play tonight is pretty good. I love it. On Monday Night Football, Dallas and Houston. Look-ahead line here was Texans -4.5. My powering number is Texans -3.5, and that's where the market appears to be sitting right about now. Getting two-way action on the side here, getting two-way action on the total here. I'll say this: there's stuff to like about both of these teams yesterday. Cowboys, not that they didn't have any playmakers. They had Zeke Elliott, but they hadn't gotten Zeke Elliott into space very often, and Zeke Elliott was a difference maker in yesterday's ballgame. That being said, for Houston, even though it was a brutal win and an excruciating win, and the Texans made 100 mistakes in that ballgame, did everything they could to let the Colts back into it, there were two very positive signs for the Texans. One, that pass rush was devastating. Clowney and Watt blew up the line of scrimmage again and again and again. And, of course, the Cowboys' offensive line has not been a unit of strength so far this season. And secondly, every bit as importantly, maybe more importantly, Deshaun Watson looked good yesterday in a way that he hasn't looked good yet this season. It looks like he may well finally be recovered from his season-ending injury last year. And if that's the case, there's a fair bit of upside with the Texans moving forward.
Yeah, I like the Texans as well. We got the Monday night game, last game here, 4-7-7, 4-7-8. Washington at New Orleans. Looks like 52 the total, Teddy, with New Orleans laying 6.5 or 7 in the Big Easy Monday night.
Yeah, 6.5 the prevailing number here, and it's a little bit of a surprise to me to see that prevailing number. Look-ahead line was 7. The Saints won and covered. The red zone execution wasn't that good, but they played their best defensive game of the season. And Drew Brees looked pretty good. But just as importantly, they shut down Michael Thomas. The Giants said, we're not going to let Michael Thomas beat us, and the Saints passing game was just fine, even though Thomas only had 4 catches. And yet the number here, look at line 7, powering number 7.5. I like the Redskins just fine. I'm not off market on Washington. And yet the number here is 6.5 on New Orleans. And it's not necessarily an injury situation either, especially considering they're going to get Mark Ingram back, which will give them the 1-2 punch in the backfield with Kamara. And I'm not seeing that this line, this line's moving to 7. No, Westgate's at 6.5 flat. Bookmakers at 6.5. With New Orleans minus a nickel, it doesn't look like it's getting a 7, at least not right about now. So somebody out there likes the Redskins a fair bit on Monday night. The markets are telling us that there's Washington support lurking out there in the weeds.
All right, Teddy. Good stuff on the podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Teddy_covers. Check out his play tonight on the Monday Night Football game at sportsmemo.com. Teddy, anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
It's all good, man. I'm excited about some postseason baseball this week, and obviously we're in October now, man. The season's third of the way done in college, quarter of the way done in the NFL. This is money-making time, my friends. Please, we can lead you to the water. We can't make you drink. Check out all the cappers at sportsmemo.com and get involved with a weekly, monthly, or seasonal package today.
Well said, Teddy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back Wednesday with College Football Every Game on the Board podcast.